what happens when we take a survival horror franchise and try and make it into a more action title? You got Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. Now what happens when you take that action title and turn it more into an arcade shooter? You got Resident Evil 4. And Resident Evil 4 leads into the iteration we know today of The Mercenaries. Yes, it actually started on Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, but its form of The Mercenaries isn't the exact same as we know it today. But I just want to go over the Mercenaries game modes of the Resident Evil franchise, specifically the game mode version, so probably won't be covering the standalone Resident Evil Mercenaries game that came out on 3DS. And yes, they did make one of those. I remember I had the controversy with the fact that you couldn't delete your save file for some reason in that game. Very weird choice. Right off the bat, we have The Mercenaries in Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. This game mode being a Hunter aspect where you play as one of the 3 Umbrella mercenaries, and you must get to the warehouse within a certain time limit. Killing enemies or dodging them will give you more and more time. There are also civilians you can find and save, but if you're too late, they will already be dead. So you want to try to find them, not only for the goodies they give you, like extra ammo and stuff, but also because they add more time. It's all about choosing when to kill enemies and when to try and save people, all to get to the one location. You can also take advantage of certain aspects within this game mode, such as the fact that Nemesis, killing these zombies for you, does count as you killing them and gives you time. You can also do stuff like kill the crows, that will also give you time, since there's still enemy being killed. And alter aspects like that, with each of the characters having their own weaponry to differentiate them. And man, for the life of me, I cannot beat this. I have tried several times and I just can't, because I'm not good at dodge mechanic. If you see me footage doing a dodge, that's not me doing it on purpose, that's me doing it by accident. You also have stuff like the Hunters, who are still able to completely one-shot you, completely destroy your run, when you do try to go to certain locales. And with my runs, I play as Carlos, so his big heavy-duty weapon is the assault rifle, which you cannot get more ammo for. You have to be more careful about it, but when I use it to take out stuff like the Hunters, it could be wonky things like the game not registering the hits happening for some reason, and there's one moment where I'm shooting a zombie with a pistol, point blank, shooting it down, and the game just didn't register it, and managed to bite me twice instantly. So you still have jank aspects of the game, but the goal is to just get to the warehouse. Another thing being, you start out so far away, and, well, I'm not the best at navigating my way through the city aspect of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis, so I do have problems just trying to find out which way to go next, everything, and sometimes I'm going in a circle, because you can do that aspect. There are checkpoints that do give you more time as well within this iteration of Mercenaries, but the main goal is to just get to the goal of the warehouse and once you complete it. Either way, you are ranked even if you lose, and you do get money for your ranking, with the money being used to get upgrades that can help out Jill in the main campaign of Resident Evil 3 Nemesis. So that's one of the main reasons you want to do the game mode, is if you want to get more bonus stuff for the main narrative. Interestingly enough, it never really fully hit me that Resident Evil 3 Nemesis Remake didn't include this game mode, because I feel like people don't really mention this version of Mercenaries. I usually think of the next one would be Resident Evil 4, but right now, some of the fact that Resident Evil 3 Remake just doesn't include Mercenaries. It had the RE Resistance game mode, but also make up for low content in Resident Evil 3 Remake, on top of the fact that I removed parts of the levels. So that's what people focus on. People focus more on the levels of the campaign being removed than an entire game mode being removed in that thing. It's just kind of weird when you think about it, the fact that the RE3 Remake doesn't include the Mercenaries. Next up, we got Resident Evil 4, and this is the face with the Mercenaries in. In game mode, we have several playable characters, each with their own weapon loadout, and their own different melee attacks, and you have 4 locales. One locale being one made for Mercenaries mode, with a special boss being put in it for Mercenaries mode, because in this one, boss enemies will spawn after a certain amount of time. The goal is not just to rack up points, but also to find these items that allow you to extend the timer. So you're adding the extra challenge of making the mode go on for longer to try to get more points. There are also items you can get in order to multiply the points you get. The challenge is not just in trying to survive, it's trying to survive survive, but also trying to survive even longer because you want the challenge, you want the points, so you're risking it all and everything. Granted, we are playing Resident Evil 4 in this game, so bullets are bullets, so chainsaw person, shoot with a pistol, they fall down. Crazy adventure, I know, later Resident Evil games will assign pistol bullets are a suggestion, but there's stuff like that that helps out. And the character's different melee attacks do also change up things. The fact that Wesker's melee attacks are just so good, but he has no knife for some reason, I don't know. Or the fact that Hunk's melee attack is an insta-kill with neckbreaker, but it's also the issue of the fact that it's not an AoE move, like when it comes to Leon and Ada, you can get more people off of them with their melee attacks, even if it is weaker, stuff like that. So there are trade-offs depending on which character you're playing as for the game mode, and you can unlock more. You also have Krauser, who whole entire gimmick, not only does he have the big infection on his arm that completely one-shots anything in the game, but the fact that his weapon is a bow, which is of course going to be slower to use than pistols and shotguns, but it's also more powerful, so you get a risk versus reward aspect. And the fact that it has a red dot sight, interesting thing since Resident Evil 5 was have a bow weapon, but it would remove the red dot sight. So, interesting little thing when it comes to that. Resident Evil 4 is what people think of with the Mercenaries mode, an entire little fun little arcadey game mode where you can just play as characters and just go wild in the mode, on top of the fact of being able to play as what will be the big novelty of Wesker in this game mode, considering he's not super big feature in the story mode of any way, shape, or form, but the fact that they included him here, and Hunk, who's not even in the game period, is also a cool inclusion here as well. One of the gripes I could say about this version of the Mercenaries mode I have is the fact when it comes to the last map, the spawn point can be a bit weird, because it has two different spawn points in it, but one of the spawn points not only immediately has surrounded by enemies, it also immediately spawns the boss enemy, and this boss enemy, bullets are a suggestion to this mofo. He looks at a bullet and go, what the hell is this, as he keeps on coming after you. I had one instance I was playing as Hunk, and I was stuck in a position where I made a mistake of backing up against a dude, because I forgot he had to stop charging, meaning my options were either keep walking backwards, or do a quick run, which will probably lead to me dying. I died anyway for walking backwards, there was no winning. But that's the challenge when it comes to that final map. That boss enemy is just so relentless. I also find it weird how the Gatling gun guys are treated as a boss enemy because they're so common-ish in the story mode, so interesting they're considered a boss enemy in Resident Evil 4's version of Mercenaries mode, so interesting thing, you know, but this is just a cool, fun inclusion to have in this game. Resident Evil 5 version of Mercenaries mode is where things get crazy dialed up. There are now way more maps based on the campaign levels of the game, and alternate versions of the character you can use who not only have different outfits, but also found different loadouts. So you have like two versions of the characters as well they can use, two versions of Chris, two versions of Showa, two versions of Wesker, and stuff like that, which is a cool addition to have to Mercenaries mode. On top of the fact that now the items you need to break to increase time are stuff that require a melee prompt, so I had to also get there and use it, but it also means because of melee prompt and enemies nearby will also get hit by it. On top of the fact that Resident Evil 5 also has environmental stuff that you can also use to your advantage when it comes to enemies, so you can try and find more goods in the environment, you can use your traps and stuff like that. And of course, you don't have enough boss enemies and try to use that against them. Just stuff like that that makes it cool. Granted, there are some stage hazards that are gone, like the ruins section doesn't have the giant sunlight laser coming down, which would be insane to have in a version of Mercenaries, but there's one of those things that just don't include here. You also have the cool aspect that when it comes to Wesker this time, he even has this cool dash ability that he's able to use in order to go to attack. It does drain some HP, but it's a good way of trying to either continue a combo or to try to get Wesker in a bad situation and basically get out of jail free card. You don't have something like a shotgun or a grenade launcher with the character's toolkit and everything. The final level for Mercenaries mode that is made up for this game is basically this cool hellish prison that, yeah, it's kind of underwhelming that the boss enemy is just an executioner, but now in a different outfit. But hey, at least they did put a different outfit, make it look more fancy and everything. But just a cool level layout to highlight this kind of hellish prison as this bonus inclusion and everything. Some of the fact that they also scour in different boss enemies for the game in some of the levels, like the mines can have the late game freaking one-shotting a-hole cockroach enemies, hate those things, included as part of the rotation. Then, when Resident Evil 5 came out on PC, originally it was exclusive to the PC version, is the No Mercy mode, which when you play a single player. No Mercy ramps up how many enemies spawn to a certain degree, and this is my de facto way of playing Mercenaries mode on the PC version. All the footage you've seen is of that version, and just look at how many enemies and how giddy it is to use something like a Hydra and just keep blasting away as they all keep charging relentlessly and everything. It's such a cool thing to include, just to have this many enemies, but it also means the points needed for the higher scores is raised to match it, so it also becomes more difficult in that aspect. So you definitely want to take advantage of trying to know where the whole entire time bonuses are, so you can increase the time before you fully commit to this whole entire aspect. It's just a super cool game mode, everything. Then to the fact that the co-op aspect that's not available on No Mercy is the fact that you also get interactions between the characters, including characters getting voice lines that we really think they would say, like Wesker having to be cooperative with another player, but he says it in the most condescending way possible. Such as rather than saying I need help when injured, he instead says you failed me, and the whole entire thing just demeaned his co-op ally. So just stuff like that is just super cool, and then they added more with DLC. Through the power of DLC, you get access to Mercenaries Reunion, a separate game mode that has sadly no Mercy counterpart, unless they're playing the PS4, Xbox One, and Switch version apparently, good on them, where you get to play as more characters, this time including Josh, who really should have been there in the main game mode if you ask me, but also includes stuff like Excella, I don't care about your existence, Excella, Kelly Barry and Rebecca, stuff like that, just cool new additions and new versions of Chris and Shemma to use, based on these outfits that were originally released on PC as a bonus, but eventually got backported to the consoles. So stuff like that, which is so cool to include. Also the fact that they added the attention detail where the person getting in a helicopter has now gone from Josh to Jill, in order to, because since Jill's not playable in this game mode, it means that now Jill can be free up to do that, rather than having a continuity error of Josh telling Josh a helicopter is coming. Stuff like that. So it's a very cool detail they didn't have to do, but they did when it comes to this version of Mercenaries. And if you just like the classic Resident Evil characters like Barry and Rebecca, you get to see them now with new HD models and playing the style of Resident Evil 5 and see what kind of crazy freaking melee prompts they have and everything. With Barry, the fact that one of your action prompts is called Miranda Rights, and it's you doing a down shot is one of the most effed up things I've seen in a good while. But it's just one of those fun aspects when it comes to Mercenaries. Like I said, on console, you seem to be able to mix this with No Mercy, so that is also a very cool addition to have to it. It makes me wish the PC version had that backport into it, but sadly, only the main Mercenaries mode can be done in No Mercy. Really? The only complaint I have would be the fact that I kind of wish for Mercenaries Reunion added one more character. Like, if they just added Billy from RE0, that would be cool as well. You already got Barry and Rebecca. It would be cool if Billy was also added to the mix for this, you know? Sure, I could mention on No Mercy mode, you can easily get pinned to a wall for how many enemies are spawning in, but that's more of a challenge of the No Mercy mode, rather than an actual flaw of Resident Evil 5's version of Mercenary. You do have this weird quirk where it's solo. Since you don't have a teammate to revive you, you still have to constantly mash the circle or B button in order to basically revive yourself when you're in a dying state, which can be a bit finicky since one, of course, mashing a lot, and two, an enemy can just easily down you again. As you're in a stun position, the bar will keep draining and you have no way of healing it, so being stunned when a dying state will just pretty much seal your fate. So there's that awkward quirk to it, but that said, it's more of a challenge than No Mercy mode than anything else. I may consider it a downside. I can't think of much of a downside when it comes to this version of game mode. when it comes to Resident Evil Mercenaries is just a damn fun Mercenaries and what I think of when it comes to Mercenaries in the Resident Evil franchise. Resident Evil 6 already has a huge combat emphasis with the amount of stuff you can do in gameplay, so of course giving a Mercenaries mode was the natural conclusion, with you being able to play as any character from the game included. Even the random agent that they only exist for the Ada campaign, the co-op partner, can be used for this game mode. Even the character Carla can be used for this game mode, all with different command actions, which is a super cool inclusion. Now, with the action heavy combat, this just makes the Mercenaries mode into a complete insanity with the amount of stuff you can do, because you're already equipped for a fight, and now you just go crazier. The only thing would be the fact that you also drain your ammo fast, but with the fact that certain enemy types, like some that explode or stuff like that, it's easy to also try and get back ammo, even if it means having to run through a horde of enemies in order to get it back. Or maybe you're playing as Jake, who's equally viable with his fists, so you might not even need the gun and stuff like that. It's just super cool with how much control you have with Resident Evil 6, and I have the game modes to properly go nuts with it and just do cool stuff in it. And it also has the No Mercy mode, so you have an army of enemies coming after you. A cool bonus to this is that Resident Evil 4's Mercenaries mode had the items that increase the point multiplier. Here they come back, but now you're able to shoot them from a distance. You still have to break the time ones up close, but the ones from point modifier, you're able to shoot from a distance, so you can just keep the action going and stuff like that. And so the biggest enemy you'll have in this game mode is the fact that you'll be spending ammo fast, since the characters don't really carry a huge amount of ammo on them, everything. Even getting ammo is still frequent everything, but it's not the enemy drops now. So that's going to be your big crutch, making sure you have the freaking ammo to go with it. There are also some maps, like the mines that have the enemies with armor that can melt the enemy more precision with your shooting, on top of having a whole entire horde of enemies coming after you. So stuff like that. I know Resident Evil 6 also gets flack for the fact that you have to mix the herbs and then put the herbs in a tablet case, which, once again, Resident Evil fans complaining about a friction mechanic that adds more resource management to a game that's be done fast while the action's going, which you think they would like more because of horror, and the whole entire thing need to be frantic quickly, but instead gets flagged because it's an inconvenience that they specifically don't like. But that's my 2 cents. Resident Evil fan base being hypocrites aside. You also have the aspect. You can put the item into the capsule and heal yourself, so then take the moment in order to mix stuff too. You start taking too much damage, because you really don't want to be put into a dying state No Mercy mode in Resident Evil 6, because the enemies are so aggressive, and the dying state in this one requires you to have to defend yourself very slowly as the enemies keep coming. Once again, on No Mercy mode, oh, you're just screwed. You're just dead. You're not making out of this one. No, you're just jetting up to dying state in solo. Now, unlike the No Mercy mode Resident Evil 5's Mercenaries, you are now able to do it in co-op and just enjoy the complete insanity of a co-op experience of No Mercy mode and just do more and more crazier stuff with a friend. So this No Mercy mode has so much going up for it. It basically has it all. It has the action game control scheme that you want from Mercenaries mode, has the points, has the enemies, has the resource management that leaves you going, I need bullets, I need bullets, I need bullets, I need bullets aspect, and you can do it all with a friend and many characters to unlock, on top of additional outfits for the characters to unlock. It just basically has it all when it comes to Mercenaries mode, but it's not exactly sniffed at Factor 1, since most of the thing on Resident Evil 5 and 4's renditions more. That's because people tend to think of Resident Evil 6 not as much in their brain, or not at all if they can help it aspect, even though Resident Evil 6 Mercenaries mode has a lot going for it, and can take advantage of the positives when it comes to the game's combat. And that's not all. Included to the PC version is the crossover with Left 4 Dead 2, so you also have access to Left 4 Dead 2 characters. Yes, they're effectively just reskins of the other characters in the game, and yes, they're reusing the voice lines from the Left 4 Dead 2 game, so they record new voice lines for these characters, but it's just cool to include them, on top of them having also a different weapon loadout And you can also, even if you're not using Left 4 Dead 2 characters, you can have the Left 4 Dead 2 zombie pack, where the boss zombie will instead be replaced with a freaking tank from Left 4 Dead 2. Granted, the tank is tiny for some reason, but it's a cool addition. On top of the fact that includes the Left 4 Dead 2 music as well, whether it be hearing music from Knight Rider, or the tank theme when the tank starts coming in and chasing after you. Stuff like that, which is so cool to include, on top of having Left 4 Dead characters now play as versatile as a Resident Evil 6 cast, and stuff like that. The only major gripe I have with this game mode is not with the game mode, but with Resident Evil 6 itself, being the fact that certain attacks just have the character take a big stun and fall over. Typically, what irks me are the snipers. The sniper shots just completely knock a character down. You're not getting hurt while you're down, but just annoying to wait for the character to stand back up in order to do something, especially with multiple snipers shooting at you. That's just a nuisance. Like I said, that's not the game mode, that's just the quirk of Resident Evil 6 itself. Resident Evil 6 Mercenaries is just sheer insanity. On top of all the unlockables, all the stages, the no mercy mode variants as well, just stuff like that. It should be what people think of when it comes to Mercenaries mode, but instead, like I said, Resident Evil 4 and 5 tend to take that place what people picture when it comes to Mercenaries mode. Next up is Resident Evil Village's version of the Mercenaries, which did also get DLC, so it's kind of just combined if you own it, as the Mercenaries Additional Order. But when it came to the base case version of Mercenaries mode, it had a few maps and only Ethan was playable when it came to the mode, with Ethan carrying over his gameplay quirks of being able to get to pretty much counter enemies when he blocks, and that's pretty much all Ethan had going for him. The Mercenaries mode this time around is not about a big horde of enemies coming after you. It's instead kind of more similar to Mercenaries Resident Evil 3, which is more about pre-made spawns and stuff like that, but it's more about speed running to get to end level, get the time bonus, and while there is an enemy count, you don't need to kill all the enemies, just a certain amount of enemies in a level, and then the end goal will spawn in. You can get more points by killing more enemies, but the main thing you want to do is just speedrun a level in order to maximize your scores and stuff like that. It was just a very basic game mode, where sure, the levels had different locales, but honestly, they didn't really do a whole lot when it came to the various locales the game already has, so they may take advantage of it as well. With the factory level being the most complained about, I don't like it either, because it's just easy to get lost in and get turned around. It's just not an interesting level, and it feels like it's two stages of the exact same level. Sure, there are level environment stuff that can use to your advantage and stuff, but honestly, this mode, as when it came out, was just so basic and uninteresting, and the big boss enemies were basically just Lady Demetress's daughters, and that's about it. So there are more levels, and I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure I read a DLC later, when it came to basic experience of Mercenaries mode, it just left people going, is that it? This is the most bare bones, boring Mercenaries mode, yeah, but not included. You also have the ability to, at the start of every round, to basically buy equipment upgrades from the Duke. But since the levels are so short, even if they have multiple areas, you don't really get to take full advantage of it, or you just could just upgrade weapons you already got quickly and just call it a day. The enemy variety is also lacking because they just spam the same enemies over and over and over. You may say that the other games do that, but the thing is, the other mercenary modes, they would have enemies that were part of the level and stuff like that for them. But here, no matter where you are, you're gonna be fighting stuff with the Lycans, you're gonna be fighting stuff with the Maidens, you're gonna be fighting the Lycans that love to shoot explosive arrows at you constantly, over and over and over. And a lot of the locales you're in are just in the village section and stuff like that, which just makes it more uninteresting to go through. It feels like you're just doing the same thing in a lot of the levels, which is the problem. It's too samey, even for a game mode that by very nature is supposed to be repetitive but fun, but here it's not fun. It's just boring, especially when playing as Ethan, who doesn't really have anything going for it other than, woo, I can kick enemies off of me after a block. Yay! Nowadays, with the power of DLC, you now have more to it. With the fact that DLC mostly can play as Chris, Lady Dimitrescu, and Heisenberg. Except they didn't mention is that Lady Dimitrescu and Heisenberg have to be unlocked, or you only gain Chris right off the bat for the DLC. Okay, how do you unlock Demetrius and Heisenberg? The answer, you need to either A rank all the stages in order to get Heisenberg, and S rank the final stage for Lady Dimitrescu. Wow. Really now? We really doing this? But now we got Chris. Is Chris better to play as? Well, Chris's gimmick is that he's more offensive based and likes the ability to block. Instead of blocking, he punches things. And you actually can upgrade his fists if you want. But his main thing for his weapons is basically his powerful rifle and this powerful machine gun. With a machine gun, generally in a position where you don't have much ammo for it, but if you upgrade it, it can go to tower enemies. Chris is easily the best character to play as when it comes to his whole entire mode. His weapons are way more efficient than anything Ethan has, and even with the lack of a punch ability, it doesn't matter because in this mode, you can get upgrades to the characters, and one of the upgrades just either you heal HP for the enemies, or heal HP every single time a bullet hits an enemy. So it doesn't matter if Chris doesn't have the HP, on top of the fact that Resident Evil 8 enemies aren't exactly that intimidating, so you're not really actually going to be taking many hits, if at all, especially when Chris's weapon set is so oppressive. So Chris is just de facto the best character to play as, and he can just blitz through the levels like nothing, getting you high ranks in the process in order to unlock more of the Mercenaries additional order. And when it comes to the other levels in this mode, they once again feel more of the same. There's one level where they actually included Moreau as an opponent, which was very cool to see, but I felt like, oh, now we're using the story mode boss characters and stuff like that? Hell, before fighting Moreau, you could actually fight the final boss, Mother Miranda, one of the levels, when it feels it should be saved for later, but instead she's in the middle of the lineup when it comes to Mercenaries mode in this game. And because Chris' machine gun, he just annihilates the crud of her to where she's easier to take down and quicker than the actual mobs that had to need to wait to spawn in. Like, Chris's toolkit is just so damn oppressive. It is ridiculous. But hey, you want to get the unlocks fast, just use Chris. Once you do unlock Heisenberg Lady Dimitrescu, Heisenberg, honestly, I just don't like playing as him because his toolkit is so slow. His hammer is slow. You can charge for a powerful attack, but when it comes to bigger enemies, like the robot cyborg people, that doesn't matter. It won't basically do much to them. Sure, you can also pick up scrap or to shoot it, or a saw blade. Once again, it's slower than just using Chris's guns that will deal more damage quickly. Like, it feels like Heisenberg should be like this big oppressive force considering his magnetic powers, but he just feels underwhelming because of the fact that his powers take setup. He can summon one of his robots in order to one-shot things, but it takes a good while to fill up. And I mentioned that Chris has an onslaught meter that will also make him more powerful, but because he can finish almost so quickly, Chris probably won't even fill up the meter at all. Hell, he got to pop off actually once, and since Chris is already so powerful, we can upgrade his toolkit. Does he need the onslaught mode? The answer is no, and Heisenberg is just so slow and just nowhere near as enjoyable to use as Chris because he just feels less efficient, and you would think a guy with electric powers would be so much more fun to play as, but not really. Lady Dimitrescu, however, has the gimmicks of she primarily has melee attacks with her claws. When it's effective, able to control not only both hands attacking, or both hands attacking at the same time, but you also have more abilities based on her throw gauge. When the throw gauge goes up from constant enemy comboing, you are then able to use more of her abilities, which includes stuff like sending out a swarm of bugs to attack people from long range, being able to just throw an entire table because it hits the beam super hard, or summon one of her daughters, which you always want to do when you have the chance, because the daughter follow around you and will keep attacking enemies that are nearby, so you want to summon them immediately. Talking about the fact that the thrill meter goes back down quickly if you aren't constantly attacking enemies, so you want to take advantage of her abilities when the thrill meter is up. But Lady Dimitrescu is damn fun to use. The only downside they put is the fact that she has to crouch in order to get through doorways, because she's big. but if you have to upgrade Agile for the random drops, then even while crouched, Lady Dimitrescu is now crouch walking at super speed, so who cares? She's coming for them shins, which to her, your shins are your ribs. So Lady Dimitrescu is actually super cool to use and worth the S rank needed in the final Mercenaries level in order to unlock. It's just damn fun to include. I don't really have any negative towards her inclusion other than the fact of, if you bought the DLC, you should have just been there at the Mercenaries Reunion. Like, come on, Mercenaries Reunion gave you all the characters up front because the DLC, Lady Dimitrescu, should have just been here. Like, overall, when it comes to Resident Evil Village's rendition of Mercenaries, you're playing as Ethan, it's boring. And playing as Chris, it's kind of enjoyable for the power fantasy, but the low counts of enemies just don't make it all that exciting. On top of the fact that if you're looking for Mercenaries mode in the vein of Resident Evil 4, 5, and 6, you will not get that here. It's like Resident Evil 3, where it's more about trying to memorize spawn points, type enemies. There is a timer, but the timer constantly goes up by attacking enemies and stuff like that. You can get the little things to increase time, but they're not really needed with how fast you will quick kill enemies or get more time. Unless you just want a time bonus, which you should get because it gives you more points for a higher rank and stuff. So Resident Evil Village's rendition on the DLC is boring. With the DLC, you basically have to complete the damn thing before you really get to enjoy it with a character Lady Dimitrescu. This mode does have hard mode variants of the levels, but they're basically just the levels, but now in the Village of Shadow difficulty, which isn't the most exciting prospect to have, you know, especially since some boss enemies are designed to be spongy. Every enemy has a health bar. Sometimes the health bar doesn't matter because they die in one hit anyway, but other times, like, just die already. Just go, oh my god, go down. Oh my god, why is this boss enemy still clinging to life? Kind of thing. Top of the fact, they don't really use the bosses from the story mode much, with only ones I can remember being Dimitrescu's daughters, Mother Miranda, and Boro, but that's about it. Like, it's so weird how they don't use the boss enemies more in that sense, but I didn't design the mode. It's just so underwhelming with the DLC, but you can see how they could have made it more and better. Last but not least, at least on China's video, is Resident Evil 4 Remake's rendition of Mercenaries mode. So that wasn't there when the game launched, but was a free update later on. With this Mercenaries mode, we're using the same cast of characters for Resident Evil 4's Mercenaries mode, although they do add the inclusion of Luis this time around. With the main feature of this mode being the fact that Resident Evil 4 Remake's combat has essentially been made way more in the player's favor with stuff like the parry and the counter and stuff like that with the knife, and being able to block one-shot attacks now in certain aspects. Although there are points where enemies can just feel like bullets or a suggestion, especially for your pistol, but you are just way more powerful in this version of the game, and this mode emphasizes that greatly. It is so easy to just move out of enemies, and it's so easy to keep a huge combo. On top of the fact that in this version of the game, every character now has a mayhem mode of sorts. For Leon and Ada, it's just a power-up mode where their shots are now practically lethal everything they do, and they're much more faster. Stuff like that makes it more powerful, although I wish these two characters had different aspects to their mayhem modes, because other characters have different aspects. Like Luis's mayhem mode has them putting down explosives. That is probably the worst mayhem mode, because that's a thing that requires setup in the game mode like Mercenaries. Why would you do this? It's supposed to be more frantic, what the hell kind of thing, but they try to make Luis stand out once that aspect. You have Hunk, who his ability is the fact that he pulls out a machine gun infinite ammo. It is probably the most busted of the abilities in the game. Krauser now has more control over his infection, so there's more stuff you can do with Krauser's mayhem mode compared to the OG, where it was just one attack that would one-shot anything in its path, but now you're able to do a bit more with it. Wesker's mayhem mode has him put the gun away and just use his enhanced trait in order to just basically super punch everything in his way, stuff like that. Although it can feel a bit too chaotic to control for his own good, but once again, it's a way to try to make him stand out. On top of the fact that when the OG Resident Evil 4, Wesker didn't have a knife, here he doesn't need a knife because he can parry attacks just with his bare hands, so they give him that one sort of quirk, on top of the fact that Wesker in this version can also close the gap with melee attacks, similar to how Ada can do the same thing as well with her grappling hook in Resident Evil 4 Remake. So add that kind of quirk to make the character stand out. The modes now also have an endpoint. You can actually defeat every enemy in the mode. There is a cap to how many enemies spawn in. They will spawn like crazy, but there will be an endpoint that will give you extra points for reaching as well. On top of the fact that even if you were to die, you still also get rewarded with the score you currently got. This version of Mercenaries mode is just easier. It's just easy in every way, shape, or form. It's easier because the characters have more to do. It's easier because the Mayhem mode makes them way more powerful than everything else. It's easier because the points needed for higher ranks is also very low. The word is just easy when it comes to this mode. It is just an easier version of Resident Evil 4's Mercenaries in a way, shape, or form. This version also only has 4 stages, reusing the same locale as the original, but it feels like they could have done more since they added some other locales in this rendition of Resident Evil 4, but instead they just stuck with the same locales from the base game, including the same boss enemies. Except for the Gatling gun guy, he's no longer a Gatling gun guy, he has a arm-mounted weird gun thing rather than a Gatling gun. Once again, the word of the day when it comes to this version of Mercenaries is easy. Like, everything's just made easier because of how much more powerful the characters are compared to enemies, since there aren't really new enemy types that take advantage of the player's new ability, aside from the red coat guys now being able to awaken the lost plagas into the affected people in order to have their heads pop out. But I'm real. With the toolkit, the Mayhem mode they give you, what good does that really do the enemy forces? Resident Evil 4 Remake's version of Mercenaries mode is still good fun, but it kind of also just highlights some of the flaws and aspects when it comes to Resident Evil 4's combat, which is still a great combat system, but you can start seeing the fact of just how overpowered the player is in response to enemies with some of the new mechanics, like the knife and everything, what you can do with it, or use it to avoid instant kill attacks from enemies. I also feel the enemies are also a bit less aggressive than they should be, it's the kill ones, because of the fact they now need a bigger wind-up to give the player time to react to their big one-shot to use a knife prompt, while the OG, they were quicker to just immediately kill you if nearby. So stuff like that. It's just an overall easier version of Resident Evil 4's Mercenaries mode, and that's not inherently a bad thing, but for someone like me, it is a bit disappointing that they didn't really match up to it, on top of the fact that it has an end point and everything, so the Mayhem does get capped eventually. So I gotta say, when it comes to Mercenaries game mode to Resident Evil franchises, my favorites are still Resident Evil 5 and 6 depiction of Mercenaries. With me, I feel like the lowest bar is Resident Evil Village, just because it just doesn't have the unique roster or the levels or just any other unique stuff that you need for a good Mercenaries mode, because Resident Evil Village was exactly built for that kind of thing, so it just feels so weird that they're included, and then make another interesting character to play as, like Dimitrescu, and just to get to unlock at the very end of the game mode and everything. So I said benchmark would be 5 and 6, especially if you're playing 5 on the console version, specifically a PS4 Xbox for the Switch version, where you can combine No Mercy and Mercenaries Reunion, which is super cool for those players. I'm a copy on console, but that's super cool for those players that they got another built addition to the Mercenaries. Like I said, I'm not covering the Mercenaries 3D, because if I do, it'll just be its own separate video, so I'll just be reviewing an entire game at that point, so it'll be its own separate video. So I gotta say about it, Mercenaries mode is still a cool game mode, just turning arcadey fun for the Resident Evil franchise, that no matter what people say about Resident Evil and what does or doesn't belong, they still enjoy Mercenaries. Those people still enjoy the Mercenaries game mode and have fun with it. Alright then, that's all I gotta say about it. Good day.